Tuscaloosa as we are back in Bama. It's a hot one. We could have record high temperatures in the 90s today as the Crimson Tide welcomes Louisiana Monroe to Bryant-Denny Stadium. It hasn't kept the fans away, and here comes the Tide. Welcome to Bryant-Denny Stadium with Matt Stinchcomb. I'm Taylor Zarzer. Coley Harvey's on the field. You'll see him in just a second. Well, the Crimson Tide got a 60-minute fight in Austin, Texas last Saturday, and they needed some heroics from the two best players, arguably, in all of college football to save the day.
Yeah, in the biggest moments, your best players have to play their best. And Will Anderson Jr., of course, came up big. 2 tackles for loss, this one for a sack, and this pushed Texas even further back, ended up making a field goal, but ended that scoring threat. And then, of course, Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner, delivers a touchdown pass in the fourth quarter to transfer Jahmyr Gibbs, who is huge in this football game. But on the fourth quarter drive, the winning drive, evades that corner pressure, gets loose, a 20-yard scamper down the sideline, and it was more than enough to put the Tide within striking distance. They had a game-winning field goal.
There you see what Bryce Young did in the last quarter after those terrific first 3 quarters by Texas. Now, it's always nice to correct mistakes after a hard-fought victory, but how do you correct those mistakes? Here's Coach Saban with Coley Harvey.
Nick, you've mentioned all week how you want your players to more consistently play to the standard of the program. What exactly does that standard look like today?
Well, I think the team's being judged by the standard of being one of the best programs in the country, one of the best teams in the country. But, you know, each individual player is getting judged on, you know, the level of consistency that he can play with. So it benefits everybody for everyone to play to the best of their ability and reach their full potential.
You know, last week you guys were able to hold on there in the fourth quarter at Texas. How can that resilience carry over to today's game?
Well, I think it's a great sign of character, you know, that you can overcome adversity. We created some difficult circumstances for ourselves. We actually came back twice in the game. So, and I think, you know, we had like 188 yards or something in the fourth quarter. So we did what we needed to do when we had to do it, which is always a great sign. You know, sometimes you got to pound your chest and sort of regain momentum, and we were able to do that. So I think that's a good sign.
All right, thanks very much, Coach.
Thank you.
Today, Coach Saban and the Crimson Tide see a familiar face. Everybody knows that guy. Terry Bowden, 3-2 against the Tide as the head coach at Auburn. But if, believe it or not, he's never coached in Tuscaloosa. All those games were in Birmingham or Auburn. Now the head coach in his second season for ULM. They won the toss. They deferred. Alabama will receive the football. Bama leads the series 2-1. They beat the Warhawks 34-0 in 2015. Most Alabama fans remember what happened 15 years ago when ULM came in here and beat them 21-14. That's Coach Saban's only non-conference home loss in 16 seasons as the head coach of the Crimson Tide. Caleb Sutherland will kick it deep to Jahmyr Gibbs. 90 degrees at kickoff in T-Town. Bryce Young, the Heisman Trophy winner last year, gets the football at the 25-yard line. Unbelievable season with over 4,800 yards passing and 47 touchdowns. 54 career passing touchdowns, could move to third today, and the beat has gone on, Stinch, in 2022.
He's played so well, and the coaches are always effusive in their praise of Bryce Young. Always poised, always calm, always productive when they need him to be the most. Proved definitely to be the case last week versus Texas in the clutch.
Gibbs, who's the leading receiver and has the most rushing attempts on the team, is right behind him. They have been leaning heavily on the Georgia Tech transfer, and he spins up to the 30-yard line. There is a flag down immediately on the first play. Today's referee is Kyle Olson.
More than 4 in the backfield. 5-yard penalty. First down.
Stench. I mean, last week, you think of all the issues that Alabama had, 15 penalties. They did have none in the fourth quarter, and they commit one on the first play.
Yeah, and you saw number 85 running off the field. That's Kendall Randolph, played guard last week, wearing number 85 as a tight end today, and an unwelcome sight. An inauspicious start to this game to open up with the procedure penalty with the illegal formation.
Coach Saban talked about the pre-snap penalties being the biggest issue for his team so far this season. Gibbs will try again and doesn't get much. He just gets a yard up to the 21-yard line where Quincy Ledette makes the tackle.
One of the things Alabama talked about in our meetings with them yesterday, we want to be able to run the ball better with authority, get downhill. You see a couple now early runs, early calls anyway, between the tackles, inside zone type runs to get north and south.
No one in the backfield for Bryce on this second down play. Surveys the field, and it's Ja'Cory Brooks in stride, stripped up at midfield. 29 yards.
Ja'Cory Brooks, one of those familiar faces in the wide receiving corps. Came up with a catch in the fourth quarter on that game-winning drive as well last week versus Texas.
Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator, calling plays quickly. Gibbs following blockers around the left end. First down, Crimson Tide inside the 35.
Well, Jahmyr Gibbs was pretty emphatic. He felt as if this offense did its best, performed best when they were up-tempo. They had their foot on the gas. See, they're able to capture the edge and get downhill quickly.
17 yards for the junior from Dalton, Georgia. Came over from the Yellow Jackets. Bryce fakes to Gibbs, goes to the sideline. Nice catch and move by Holden towards the end zone. Touchdown. Trayshawn Holden, the leading receiver for the Tide from 31 yards out.
Probably a receiver he has the most rapport with in Holden. Play action fake, come back to Holden. He's one of those guys, 9 catches coming into this game, make it 10 now. He and Jahmyr Gibbs, the most prominent receivers in the passing game.
33-yard touchdown. And Bryce Young is now third all-time in career touchdowns responsible for with 59. Don't blink in Bama. Alabama's offense on all cylinders early. I'm sorry. Number 11, Trayshawn Holden with the touchdown catch there of 33 yards. 11 yards was the previous long on the season. This team has been so different at home, Stench, in the last 2 seasons as opposed to what they're doing on the road.
They struggled, even looking back to last year, right? A near miss versus Florida, drop a game to A&M. Really their best road game last year was versus Mississippi State. Otherwise, some shaky performances.
Louisiana Monroe gets it at the 25-yard line, Coley Harvey.
The open, that the temperatures are close to 90 at the air temperatures. The feels like temperatures are actually into the 90s down here on the sidelines. I can tell you that both teams' training staffs, they're concerned about cramping coming into this game because of the heat and the humidity. There's mounds of ice on both sidelines like you see behind me. The fans are going, and I don't mean the fans in the stands, I mean the fans on the sidelines. I'm wearing this suit jacket, but it's a light color. I'm not that stupid.
Coley's in great shape. He can handle the heat down there as it is complete to Zach Rasmussen. The tight end makes the catch for 12 yards and a first down throw by Chandler Rogers, the transfer from Southern Miss, who also played some at Blinn Junior College. People in this state will remember Cam Newton, of course, transferred from there to Auburn.
Slightly different stature, though, right, Taylor? I mean, we're talking about a 6-foot quarterback right here, a guy that we can anticipate ULM moving the pocket a great deal, not just to evade the rush, but also to give clear passing lanes.
He's 8th in the country in completion percentage, and he can run, too. They run it with Malik Jackson, who doesn't get anything. Henry To'o says no.
We talked with defensive coordinator Pete Golding, and Henry To'o grew into his leadership role a season ago. Kind of a slow build, transfer guy, new program. Not so this year. He's established. He is a guy that can communicate well. Also, kind of the experienced veteran leadership presence that they have at inside linebacker.
Tide has been terrific against the run so far this season, limiting both Utah State and Texas to 79 yards rushing apiece. Rogers throws, and it's incomplete. That is a forward pass to Tyrone Howell. 3rd and 10.
They're going to get the ball out quickly. That's been kind of a hallmark of these offenses that Alabama has faced. Everyone knows they're not stupid. They know you got number 31 and Will Anderson Jr. out there, Dallas Turner, oftentimes on the field at the exact same time. It's pick your poison if you're passing the football. The ball comes out in under 2 seconds on average.
Bama's been great on 3rd down defense, only giving up first downs 20% of the time.
Dallas Turner and Will Anderson Jr. there on the field, both on the edges.
Rogers throws it into the bench. Good pressure up front from the Crimson Tide, forcing a punt.
So that time they end up getting pressure. Will Anderson Jr. dropped into coverage. Instead, they brought linebacker pressure. And of course, Terry Bowden, offensive coordinator Matt Kublik, they're going to have their hands full throughout this afternoon. So difficult to find running lanes inside, and then once you get into passing situations, how do you keep your quarterback upright with time?
Devin McCormick kicking it to one of the best names in college football, Kool-Aid McKinstry, standing near his 20. And it goes out of bounds, and the Crimson Tide will get it back. Up 7-0 early with 11:39 to go in the first. Tied with 54 in a row in the regular season against non-conference opponents. I think you remember the last loss 15 years ago to this program, Louisiana Monroe. Nick Saban recently gave a speech at a dinner and said this about that day.
And when I was at LSU, we won the national championship, so I had my LSU national championship ring on, and I paid the guy, and he said, "Wow, man, what is that ring you got on there?" And I said, "Well, it's a national championship ring from LSU, and we're going to do the same thing here at Alabama." And the guy said, "We'll never do it as long as that Nick Saban is the coach."
That guy was wrong. 6 national championships later after that 07 loss to the Warhawks. And to shuffle the deck a little bit that first season, but they've been rolling ever since. Look at all this time for Bryce Young. And he's going to chunk it deep down the field, and it's intercepted. He was looking for Isaiah Bond, but he didn't see Tristan Driggers of ULM.
Driggers came up with a huge interception last week. And boy, he just tracked this football. That ball hung up in the air. Bryce Young with a rare bad decision. You see, planting his feet, just didn't get enough on this football. And Driggers was underneath that pass. Excellent job. And as you pointed out, there was plenty of time because there was only 2 receivers out in the route. So you're sitting there and you're talking about 8-man protection.
How about that jacket, too, that he gets to put on? That's a
little hot for that. I don't know, that's almost like a punishment. Regardless, big turnover.
What a play by Driggers, but that gives Will Anderson a chance to make some plays. It's a loss of 3.
You can only contain this guy for so long. I mean, eventually you can't run opposite of 31 all the time. And you certainly can only assign so many people in the scheme to account for him. He's excellent versus the run, as good of a pass rusher as Will Anderson is.
Quickly, they get it off. It is intercepted. This is Will Anderson Jr. Touchdown. There's Derek Thomas and there's Will Anderson in the history of pass rushing at Alabama. Now the guy has a pick six.
It looked like they were trying to set up a screen. They were. Ball bounces straight up. The would-be, or at least intended, receiver was Andrew Henry, rather, out of the backfield. And he just deflected it straight up. Anderson was the welcome recipient.
And after Louisiana Monroe forced an Alabama turnover, Will Anderson takes the belt and the ball into the end zone. So much made about that guy's ability to get to the quarterback. I think he should have gotten credit for a block kick last week before halftime. It looked like he got a piece of that football that Bert Auburn missed, the kicker for Texas, and now this week he's picking passes off and running them in.
You know, it's interesting too, you talk about the two best players on what is a very deeply talented football team in Alabama, Bryce Young and Will Anderson. So Bryce Young makes a bad decision, throws a bad ball downfield, interception. What happens? A couple of plays later, Will Anderson gets the ball not only back, but says, hey, offense, I'll take care of this. I'll go ahead and get in the end zone for you. You'll go ahead and get your head screwed on tighter, and we'll go back and play some more defense after we picked up another touchdown.
What a three-year career for the junior from Hampton, Georgia. Won the Nagurski Award, most outstanding defensive player last year. This is his first career interception and touchdown.
Take a look back at that interception one more time by Will Anderson. It's almost like a jump ball. And I can promise you Will Anderson is going to win all of those. Look at the length that this guy plays with. He's always around the football, especially when it's still in the offensive backfield. His teammates rallying around one of the best players in college football defensively.
He's got those go-go gadget arms that hang so far down. He gave the stiff arm there. Can reach and extend those arms just about further than anyone. Rodgers off of the interception, tries to go back to the air. Immediately taken down by Brian Branch on the safety blitz.
Confusion on the edge and protection. And this was something that they were keenly concerned about on the ULM side. When you're trying to run play action, Branch is coming from the edge pressure, unaccounted for in the protection scheme, and because of that, as soon as Rodgers comes out of his play fake, he's got a Bama defender right on top of him.
It's a loss of 6. Malik Jackson tries the right side of the Alabama defensive front where Tim Smith is. Pete Golding, by the way, yesterday, the defensive coordinator for Alabama, said this defensive line that doesn't get almost any attention does it better collectively than any of Golding's 3 previous teams that he's been the defensive coordinator for.
Just think about that. That's big talk. I mean, you're talking about some really talented players along that front, but he says as a unit within the scheme, they execute very well.
3rd and a mile for Rodgers. This is an underneath throw that's caught by Zach Jackson. Quarterback pressure by To'o, forcing Rodgers out of the pocket. And the Warhawks will have to punt again.
It's so challenging. If you cannot be productive on first down and get ahead, at least on schedule, in your possession, so you're setting up a second manageable to get it to 3rd and something that you can convert, it's going to be a long, long afternoon. Those early down productivity for the Warhawks today is pivotal.
McKinstry stands at his own 35, waiting on the McCormick punt. Here comes the Tide, and they block it. It's going to be picked up by Malachi Moore. Touchdown.
See, gets it in the end zone. Nice recovery by Moore. Look at the overload. There's just not enough bodies. You go right through the personal protectors at the second level. Looked like it was Ja'Cory Brooks that got his hand on the kick. Malachi Moore there to scoop and score. How about that? A defensive touchdown, now a special teams touchdown.
All three phases, Stinch, in the first 6 minutes and 10 seconds of the game. Will Reichert has the all-time record for PATs. After his latest, the Tide is rolling early on. Now, where in the world was this when Matt Stinchcomb was a Hall of Fame college football player, where you just poured the AC down your back?
Isn't that genius? I can assure you it was not available. That's a really great idea, though. You see him, they're just walking around player to player.
Bryce Young might need to warm up some.
That's right. Yeah, don't cool him off. He's been on the sideline. The last time we saw him out on the field, he threw a pick. That was 2 touchdowns ago. Offense hadn't even seen the field.
Louisiana Monroe is about to possess the football for the 3rd time since Alabama's had it offensively. Alfred Luke will give ULM the ball at the 25. All 3 phases, Stinch.
Well, they started out offensively, pushing the ball downfield, completed some passes. That's been something that we haven't seen a ton of from the Tide, pushing it in the passing game. And then, of course, ULM, the deflection. Will Anderson Jr. is right there. Picks off the deflection, and then a block punt by Ja'Cory Brooks. Malachi Moore is there to scoop and score. As we pointed out, Alabama scoring in bunches, and they haven't even possessed the football on offense.
Chandler Rogers to Malik Jackson, and he's met by several defenders, including Anderson, for another loss.
It's almost immediate penetration by the Alabama defensive front. Jaheim Oates, where he gets back there, Oates, he's just disruptive right away. I mean, you're right there at the handoff, at the mesh point.
It doesn't really matter where they line up, Anderson. Nobody can stop this guy. He lines up many times on the defensive line, even though he's 40, 50 pounds slimmer than the guys to his left. Covered up here as an underneath pass is complete to Zach Jackson. It'll be 3rd and long after the pickup of 4.
It was something that Pete Golding pointed out, is that Will Anderson is so heavy-handed, meaning he's so violent, strong with his hands, plays with great leverage, that he's excellent versus the run. So he'll line up inside, a 4-eye, the inside of the offensive tackles. He's not just a pass rusher.
In fact, he has both hands on the ground, kneeling as he's next to Jalen Moody at the bottom of your screen on the line of scrimmage. And as you said, an interior lineman on this 3rd and 9. Tries to escape, but Anderson is able to get to him. Will they call the horse collar, though, here, Stinch?
It looks like that's what the penalty is. I'm not sure that he had the back of his collar. It looked like he grabbed his pads, but watch this. They're trying to run a game with Will Anderson. He gets hung up. He bounces into Byron Young, slows him down. It actually helped him, and yeah, it does look like he got the back of his jersey.
Personal foul, horse collar tackle, defense, number 31, 15-yard penalty, automatic, 1st down.
And clearly that's the one thing that he needs to clean up. 4 penalties last week, 3 pre-snap, and then he had a personal foul in the game last week when a Texas offensive player was on the ground. He then went to tackle him thinking it was Sunday instead of Saturday.
Yeah, Pete Golding couldn't believe it. He said, I asked Will, what were you thinking right there? He's like, nobody touched him, coach. Nobody touched him. He's like, nobody has to touch him.
Right.
This is college football.
A great play next year.
Oh, hey, listen, he's a Sunday talent. He's already got that Sunday mindset. He's playing by Sunday rules. But there, the horse collar, you can see why that is a penalty. It's a dangerous way to tackle when you see the way the offensive players are pulled backwards like that.
He's the only guy stopping himself at the moment. Rogers tried to squeeze that one into Jackson, or excuse me, to Boogie Knight, another great name, but it's incomplete.
It's interesting, even last week, where penalties were able to extend drives for the Tide's opponent. And then even again here, obviously, you're getting off the field, and instead, with the penalty, affords your opponent anyway a fresh set of downs.
Cleaning up the penalties and an improved receiver play are two areas that Coach Saban would like to see some progress in, as Isaiah Phillips carries the football for a couple.
That's why it's so hard on first downs, the incompletion. Then you only pick up a couple of yards, and now it's, you know, Hunger Games. Third down and long, facing this defensive front, hadn't slowed him down. Dallas Turner out there. You've got Chris Braswell coming off the opposite edge. So you've got two edge rushers and really one big body up front. Otherwise, you've got a lot of speed on the field. Henry To'oTo'o and Deontay Lawson both coming.
One-on-one ball is incomplete. And they were looking for Jackson, but it's Terry and Arnold with nice coverage. Arnold, the redshirt freshman from Tallahassee, almost had a pick six last week. Forces the fourth down here.
Pass well defended that time by Arnold. Just really calm with the ball in the air. See there, no panic coming at you. It would have been first down yardage.
McKinstry is going to take this at the 15-yard line. Kool-Aid back to the middle of the field. Watch out. Down near the 40. It's a 42-yard punt and a 47-yard return.
Punts have been really low in this game so far, Taylor, and that is difficult on your coverage team. Guys can't get down. So because of that, McKinstry does a great job. He was looking to set up the return to the right, cuts all the way back to the opposite sideline, just weaved his way past midfield. The guy gets some more hang time. Obviously, you want to get distance. Sometimes you kick him low and deep. It's just making it that much more difficult for your coverage team.
That number one will get a break as the Tide offense is finally back on the field. And here's their number one, Jahmyr Gibbs, on what, believe it or not, is only the sixth offensive play.
Seeing some rotation along the offensive front. Kendall Randolph in there, number 85. They ran right behind him, lined up at tight end. You get another new face in there, and Tyler Booker at guard. And they've been really high on him, a true freshman, looking to get him some more reps.
Young steps up now, dumps it off to Gibbs. The leading receiver on the team as another first down is Bryce Young is getting back on track, Coley.
One theme we're going to hear about Bryce Young throughout this game is the leadership that he has. And I can tell you that while this feels like forever ago, right after his interception on that early drive, he walked up to each one of his offensive linemen, tapped them on the shoulder, said, hey, that's my bad, that's my fault, I'm sorry. And then right after Will Anderson scored, he was the first person to greet Anderson on the sideline. So that's the leadership that we're going to be hearing a little more of on Bryce Young later.
Yeah, great job, Coley. Coach Saban and Bill O'Brien both were raving about his leadership. Takes it out of McClellan's belly and throws it to Jermaine Burton. It's first and goal, Alabama.
We heard about the chemistry that he actually has with Jermaine Burton. Didn't really materialize last week. And you can see a personnel and formation you didn't see a ton of. That's Jahmyr Gibbs blowing out of the backfield, RPO, stab one in there, right over the linebacker's head to Jermaine Burton. That two-back offense, they didn't have any two-back plays a year ago, did Alabama offensively. That proved to be a productive set and personnel grouping for the Tide offense last week versus Texas.
McClellan, the fake to him. Bryce eludes the two tacklers, and they give him the touchdown. This guy is Houdini.
You see him shaking his head. On this one, it looked like he should have just decided to run early. It just shows Bryce Young is an excellent on the move, very evasive. But look at this. If he just stood on the gas, I'm convinced that receiver you see out wide, He converts to a blocker, and instead, he was kind of betwixt and between. Looked like he was still looking to throw it at the last minute, and then able to salvage it and get it in the end zone.
We were saying during the last extra point that Will Reichard now has made the most extra points in Crimson Tide history with 188. Reichard, of course, had that game-winning field goal last week to beat Texas, the SEC Special Teams Player of the Week. And his Bama teammates have scored on 24 straight red zone trips, all 11 this year.
Yeah, Reichard just doesn't miss. I mean, Nick Saban, he was kind of like, I can't believe it. I've been coaching a long time, and this guy is excellent. Last season, he was money and continues to be a weapon as a place kicker.
Speaking of money, the last time Alabama had a game-winning kick, Jamie Money Christensen made it in 2005. Used to flash that money sign before Johnny Manziel did. That was the first time Nick Saban has had a game-winning kick as the head coach at Alabama. His teams had missed a couple. Remember the national championship 5 years ago against Georgia, that 9-6 LSU game. Reichard able to cash in last week in Austin after this guy got him in position to win it.
That is a remarkable statistic when you think about it. There have been some close games, a lot of wins. For there to be that long of a period between game-winning field goals.
And he's out there to kick off with a 28-0 lead here in the first quarter. Our stellar SEC football lineup rolls on tonight at 7 Eastern with 3 more games. Number 15, Tennessee, takes on Terry Bowden's old team, Akron. And number 10, Arkansas meets Bobby Petrino in Missouri State on SEC Network Plus. We cap the night with 18th ranked Florida taking on the South Florida Bulls in the Swamp at 7:30 Eastern right here on SEC Network. Every game available on the ESPN app. You can watch anywhere. How about Bobby Petrino coming back to Fayetteville today? You think there might be some neck braces in the stands today? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there might be. They might be just as necessary for those fans as they were the first time we saw them.
It was such a wild exit out of Fayetteville years ago. Malik Jackson gets a couple against this Crimson Tide defense. You know, Stitch, Nick Saban made a really fascinating point yesterday about one thing he thinks his team needs to overcome this year, and that is that they don't have veteran reserves, or as many of them as they've had in the past. You've seen a bunch of players at SEC schools these days transfer if they're not starters, as that's an incomplete pass. And toe and Rogers.
Yeah, pretty violent stiff arm to the face of Rogers. I didn't hear a whistle prior to that, though.
There is no foul for intentional grounding. There was a receiver in the area.
They're trying to set up another screen. Boy, screen game has been an adventure so far in this game. You see toe. Just gives him a little chin music right there. Rogers didn't appreciate that very much. I didn't hear a whistle, though, prior to that. No flags come out.
Rogers moves the pocket and throws. It's complete. And it's a first down as Howell makes the catch near the Warhawks sideline and picks up 16.
Well, seemingly that's the formula. Now you can't live off of it the entire game. Moving the pocket, rolling to his throwing arm side, just the way they opened the game. We're able to get an early completion. And now again here to get a conversion.
Gives Rogers and his teammates the football near the 40-yard line. Bama firing on all cylinders in the first 12 minutes. Rogers, the one-on-one ball is too far in front of his intended target, Tyrone Howell, with McKinstry in coverage. I was saying about Coach Saban that you're seeing this all over the country. If you are a veteran player, but you're not a starter in the SEC,
start somewhere else.
You're going to look to start somewhere else. And Coach Saban lost some transfers. Now he picked up these guys, these 5 guys, but he said we don't have as many guys that have been in the program that are backups anymore. And that's affected the chemistry somewhat early in the season.
Well, and the experience within his system. You might have been a starter elsewhere, but you weren't starter here.
Jackson taking on defenders might have gotten a yard as To'o, the leading tackler last year, makes another one.
And Deontay Lawson as well. Lawson, a guy alongside To'o. All three of those guys can kind of rotate. To'o can play both inside linebacker positions. Deontay Lawson, number 32, is a guy Pete Golding said, I got to get him in the game more. I got to be more intentional with him. He can play for Jalen Moody. He's in there right now. For Jalen Moody, got a couple of reps late versus Texas in the red zone, getting some earlier reps here today.
ULM is 1 of 5 on 3rd down, and Rodgers is going down. He had a trio of Bama defenders in the backfield there. Dallas Turner, Malachi Moore, both in on the action.
Just meet me at the quarterback. 3rd and obvious. Hard to even hold up. You see there, Lawson was able to get back there, move Rodgers off the mark, push him up into the rush. It's a frustrating day, no doubt, offensively.
This is a 3rd Bama sack. This is a much better punt. Takes McKinstry inside the 10-yard line. McCormick's bomb, but here comes Kool-Aid again. And he's down at midfield. A 2-yard punt. Another 40-plus yard return, this one 42.
I was saying earlier, you don't want those low kicks, those low deep kicks, because your coverage unit can't get down there. This time, out kicks his coverage. And this is just a happy medium, right? It's not just bomb that ball down there. It's just not that simple. You got to give your coverage unit time to get in position. Each time, Alabama's been able to exploit the Warhawks in their punt return game.
It's Bryce Young in the offense, the football at midfield.
A block punt, 2 great punt returns. Special teams figuring prominently in favor of the Tide.
Young wants to go deep and will. He's got Burton down there, but it's too far in front of him. 2nd down.
Coming into this game, we were talking about the downfield passing for the Tide. They're completing about 38% of their passes that covered more than 10 yards. Not up to their standard. Now today, he's been 3 or 4 for those types of passes for 78 yards. That time just too far in front of Jermaine Burton, who was definitely behind the coverage.
This is McClellan, who had that long touchdown run against Texas last week, 81 yards. He picks up 4. Junior from the great state of Texas. And I tell you what, all 3 of the coaches we met with yesterday were raving about the Longhorns. Now, you don't know with the Quinn Ewers injury at quarterback how that impacts the Longhorn season, but everyone, at least in Tuscaloosa, believes that Texas is for real. Of course, Steve Sarkisian, the old offensive coordinator, now the head coach there in Austin, calling the shots. On 3rd and 6, Young dumps it off, and again it's Gibbs, but he's short of the 1st down, wrapped up by Deuce Mayberry. It'll be 4th down inside the 45.
You see the offensive linemen, they're going to go for it. They stood there, they were right over the ball, pointing like, hey, give us a shot at this thing. They were 1 for 2 on 4th downs a week ago. Again to Gibbs out of the backfield. They motioned him into the backfield, and he's just as good as another receiver. Now empty, so no backs in the backfield. Cleans the picture up on a 4th down look. And Bryce Young, being a mobile quarterback, a guy that even if you leak in protection, he can still get the conversion for you with his feet.
Gets it off before the quarter expires, and it's incomplete to Gibbs, who stopped his route.
Yeah, there was definitely miscommunication between
That is the end of the first
would-be
quarter.
receiver and quarterback right there.
A turnover on downs as the quarter ends, but it's all Bama, 28-0 After one quarter here in Tuscaloosa, touchdowns in all three phases for the Tide. We start the second quarter, and Alabama is doing it all against UL Monroe. 2 touchdowns on offense, a pick-6 on defense, and a block punt and a score in special teams. Also had 2 40-yard punt returns in the game so far as Malik Jackson carries it for a few yards. The Warhawks did get an interception of their own and forced a turnover on downs against Alabama. I'm sure those are some things that Coach Saban will emphasize at halftime. But other than that, Tide's looking pretty good.
Yeah, pretty dominating in multiple phases. You got to believe that head coach Terry Bowden will also emphasize those plays, though. You know, you did get a stop on a 4th down. Special teams have been a serious issue. You knew that the regular phases would be as well.
And here is Jackson to the sideline, and it's a 1st down run for Malik, the junior from Opelika, just outside of enemy territory over there in Auburn. 10-yard pickup.
Really nice burst from Malik Jackson as he bounced that run. There's a Tide defender down right on the logo.
It's Tim Smith, junior from Guilford, Florida, who's been a significant contributor, especially in the last couple of years.
We talked about how deep they roll along that defensive front. They've got 6 guys that they believe in. And that includes Otis. Made a play earlier as a true freshman.
You see Young, Boygby, and DJ Dale all right there with Tim Smith.
Yep.
They are all extremely close.
Yeah, it was great visiting with Byron Young yesterday. Impressive young man. And as you mentioned, that defensive front, veteran. They've been here a while. They understand this system. They operate very well within it. None of them are flashy players, but all of them, you don't even want to say solid. They're really, really good football players, and together they make up an excellent front.
Byron Young had the quote of the day about unsweet tea. He said, "That tastes like bitter water. I drink sweet tea," he says. God bless you, Byron.
You're not kidding. Really, that's just what they ought to call it. If it's not sweet, then it's no longer tea. It's bitter water.
Isaiah Phillips comes in for Jackson, and Phillips won't get much. Coley, we loved meeting with Byron Young yesterday.
Yeah, Taylor, that meeting with Byron Young was really interesting. One of the things that really stood out to me from the defensive end here at Alabama is that conversation about the standard here at Bama and what that is. I asked him, what is that exactly? And he said it's dominance. It's wanting to see the other team quit, and it's wanting to look in the stands in the 4th quarter and see them empty. That's whether you're on the road or even here at Bryant-Denny Stadium, because if those stands are empty, that means that this team has done its job.
And Coley, you were with Coach Saban for his coaches show on Thursday night, and he was talking about being a hateful competitor.
Yes.
And Byron certainly got the message. Nice pass on the slant to Alfred Luke. Freshman from New Orleans picks up 13, and it's another Warhawks 1st down.
We talked about Chandler Rogers coming in here, one of the most accurate passers statistically in the country. That ball was on the money.
12.5 minutes remaining until the half. Rogers gets out of there, and he gives himself up inside the 25. It'll be a pickup of 5.
That time, though, able to find an escape lane. One of the things, it's not just pressure the passer. You have to squeeze the pocket, especially when you've got a quarterback that's mobile like Rogers. Last week, he had 8 rushes. He's at 55 yards on the ground. This is a guy that can hurt you. And so you get out of your pass rush lane. Next thing you know, he's able to escape. We talked about those early downs and how they have to be productive to stay out of the 3rd and obvious passing downs. That's an excellent 1st down scramble by Rogers.
It took a long time for Rogers to get this play in, and he Hands it off to Jackson. It's going to be 3rd down, but Tim Smith not out there at the moment, Coley.
He's not out there, Taylor, but a quick update. He is expected to return. It's a lower extremity issue is what I'm told from the Alabama training staff. The defensive lineman is actually on a bike right now trying to work out his legs. We may see him here fairly soon.
Yeah. You nailed it, Coley. I think he's probably just trying to stay loose. Probably got nicked, maybe a little bit scared, rolled up in there. Sometimes you feel a shooting pain and you wonder, is this thing real? A lot of times it just goes away. Looks like we'll see the big fella back out there soon.
This is 3rd and 3, and Rodgers is going to move out of the pocket, get drilled, and deliver a perfect strike at the 11-yard line to Darian Wiley. It's a pickup of 11, and he was feeling the heat.
Jalen Moody on a green dog. So really what he's looking at is what's the back doing? Is the back stay in and protect? And I'm coming, I'm blitzing. Lucky that he wasn't too high on the passer there. Very protective of the passers. Rodgers able to stare down, knowing Moody was bearing down on him. And once again, very accurate delivering the football.
Warhawks are 6 of 6 in the red zone this year with 5 touchdowns. And this is a handoff to Jackson, and Malik scores their 6th touchdown in the red zone and their 1st of the day. By far, ULM's best drive of the day results in 6 points.
And on the heels of that 4th down stop, great job by the left side of the offensive front. They just collapsed that side of the Tide defense. Jackson able to get outside over the left side of the line of scrimmage, stick his foot in the ground and get downhill.
8 plays, 57 yards, and did it in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. It's only the 2nd red zone touchdown allowed by Alabama this season. UL Monroe knows how to win in Tuscaloosa. They're on the board today, 28-7 Alabama. There you go, Benjamin. Well done. Dari, good to hear your voice, my friend. I have to admit, as a proud native of Mobile, Alabama, I'm keeping my eyes on the ESPN app. South Alabama 31, UCLA 29 in the Rose Bowl.
Up on the Fighting Chip Kellys. They don't fight so hard out there anymore.
Jahmyr Gibbs inside the 5 with daylight. Past midfield and near the 40. What a return by the Georgia Tech transfer, who is happy that he isn't playing Ole Miss right now. It's a return of 56 yards. Terry Bowden has played the Tide 5 times. He's 3-2 against them. He's 6th among active coaches in total wins with 179. Was at Samford, at Auburn, Akron, and now at UL Monroe. And those 5 games against Alabama in the mid-90s were must-watch. Everybody remembers the kick 6. Certainly Alabama fans hated that back in 2013. I would say the best Alabama win against Auburn in terms of both teams being ranked highly was against him. His first loss there in 1994 happened in Birmingham. A terrific game between 2 top 10 teams. Guy started, think of this, Stench, he started 20-0 with 1 tie before he lost that game to Alabama in '94.
I remember it well. Yeah, that was my, the fall of my senior year. Georgia tied them. And then I believe the following week they lost to the Tide to end that streak. The tie slowed that kind of streak down. You went undefeated for 1 season, weren't eligible because of NCAA sanctions. And then you just kept on winning that 2nd year until they tied Georgia and then lost to the Tide.
Was dismissed by Auburn in 1998 and didn't get to coach in the Iron Bowl that year. It's a 3rd straight Jace McClellan run. There is a flag down. It is a 1st down run, at least for the moment, inside the 25.
They'll get the Vanderbilt transfer, Tyler Steen, there for a hold right on the edge.
Holding, offense, number 54, 10-yard penalty, 3rd down.
And, you know, we always replay penalties on the offensive line.
You don't like this, do you?
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, he held him, turned him around a little bit, whatever. Things happen.
The College Football Hall of Famer that played left tackle for the Dogs looks away when we show those replays. And you were very quick to point out that you didn't feel the offensive line should be scrutinized at Alabama as much as maybe some gave them last week.
No, I thought they played relatively well. I mean, there was a couple that, you know, people talk about the pressures. You know, one of those pressures and sacks on Bryce Young, that was not on the offensive front. It was on a new face in the offense and Jahmyr Gibbs. They just weren't clear in the protection plan.
Young on 3rd and 12. Again time, but here come flags, and here comes Lou Tillery for the sack.
Chalk that up to the coverage. Bryce Young did not like what he had downfield. Tucks that ball, pushes up in the pocket, still had it.
Holding, offense, number 70. That penalty is declined. 4th down.
So Javion Cohen at left guard. You see Sustine pushes around the edge. I don't like this penalty. His hands are inside. He dumps the defensive lineman. We've seen this a lot. We used to call it tipping. So you take the guy, and if you feel him leaning, and you got your hands locked up, go ahead and tip him and dump him. Getting a holding penalty right there.
Tide's had 24 penalty stints in 10 quarters. That one would have been the 25th had it been accepted. James Burnett kicks it inside the 10 to Boogie Knight. Warhawks get the football back with 8:24 to go until halftime.
That was quick.
Young, of course, the reigning Heisman winner, and Will Anderson certainly could be in the mix again. 4 tackles, a sack, a pick 6 already for Anderson today.
That's a stat line.
Didn't even play on the last possession when the Warhawks scored a touchdown. He's at the top of your screen on this first down, and they elude him and get out of the backfield, and Rodgers runs for a first down.
How about the speed on Rodgers? Waiting to see him pull it and take it. Saw a couple of nice scrambles there earlier in this first half. He's definitely got wheels. We talked about the accuracy that he possesses. Credit the Warhawk defense. They get a stop on downs and force a punt. And ULM with back-to-back offensive possessions and opportunity.
All of a sudden, the Warhawks have found something on offense, scoring a touchdown on their first possession of the quarter, and on first down, this is caught. Incredible hit by Anderson on Rodgers, but it's a 9-yard reception by Jevin Frett.
That ball comes out so fast, and yet Anderson's upfield. Watch him. He wins right now. Sweeps the hands. That's twice now where we've seen contact to the quarterback's head and neck area. I have not seen a flag come out. We have seen targeting flags come out for hits like that. Seen 2 of them here in the first half. No flags for either. Regardless, great ball and an excellent catch.
And here comes the flag. Rodgers has been fearless back there taking these hits.
False start. Offense, number 87. 5-yard penalty. 2nd down.
Nolan Quinlan moving early.
So you get a great first down play, and then what do? You give 5 yards right back to a defense you can't afford to help out. Going back to that last hit on the quarterback, you think how quickly. So that ball is caught and almost out immediately, and yet Anderson is still able to be right in the passer's face.
For Terry Bowden, you just lose sleep thinking about what 31 can do to your team. 2nd and 6. And they go right at the Bama defense. Malik Jackson picks up a few. You know, Anderson, as we've noted, is in rarefied air in all-time Alabama history when it comes to pass rushing. His 25.5 career sacks. He's 3rd all-time on that list. Derek Thomas with a whopping 52. Pete Golding, the defensive coordinator. Stench, remember last year what he said about Will Anderson. He has no buts, just a bunch of ands. Meaning that there is nothing critical. There's nothing you can critique. He just has this and he has that. Well, there was Justin Eboigbe and Chris Braswell on the tackle, but not before Monroe was able to move the chains on another Jackson run. Here's what we were talking about, the pass rushing comparison with Derek Thomas.
It's just a staggering number. It's a staggering, on both sides, both columns, staggering numbers. But Derek Thomas was on another planet, skill-wise. And we're talking about fewer games. And offenses were more geared towards rushing the football. Just amazing productivity.
Again, getting rid of it quickly, and Tyrone Howell dives ahead for another yard or two up to the 38. It's a pickup before. You got to give Rogers credit, this Southern Miss transfer that comes in after throwing for 360 yards and running for another 60 so far this season. He gets rid of that football in a hurry.
Wisely so. And has been able to do it on time and still often under duress. Alabama's done a great job, despite the cadence at which this ball's coming out, still able to get back there quickly.
Dominated the second quarter. Here comes an end around, and this is Bugs Mortimer around the edge, and he gets up near the 42-yard line. Marco Helms pushing him out of bounds. Mortimer, the freshman from Fort Lauderdale.
Another fantastic name.
Yeah.
Look at the ball handling in the backfield. Just spin it around, you ride that read, and then spin around, just flip it backwards. Well designed, and then you're right back to the 3rd and short.
Bugs, Boogie, and Kool-Aid are all on the field right now in this all-name game. On 3rd and 1, under center, Rogers.
Dropped the snap, it looked like.
Judge comes in right near the first down marker. We'll see. It looks like maybe just shy.
It looked like they were going to do a bluff cadence initially, and then they look over to the sideline, and Rogers drops this snap initially. Makes it really hard to sneak it if you don't possess it. Don't spend a lot of time under center, and so that exchange can be tricky. Proved to be the case there. The Tide, the beneficiary of a bad exchange. How you like that insight?
That was terrific. If you
it?
don't have the football, you cannot sneak it.
No, you can't. Well, you can, but it won't matter because you don't have the ball.
Dynamite drop in, Monty. Let's see this. Oh, it is. It's enough.
That's the definition of a second effort. Drop the snap, pick it up, still muscle your way forward. Got to be frustrated in their short yardage defense. Alabama last week had a key stop, ended up lining up in the neutral zone. Will Anderson was kicked down based on the formation they got. Now here, the Warhawks able to convert a couple of short yardage scenarios to continue on this drive. Those are the kind of effort edge plays, those snaps of situational football that you want to win.
Under pressure again, and Rogers tried to get out quickly. It's incomplete. Brian Branch was in the backfield with Rogers there, second down.
Alabama does such a great job of playing with their hands. You have to win right now to be in the backfield as quickly as they are, meaning one step in the ground and the offense, whoever's trying to block you, they don't even touch you. You saw that earlier. Will Anderson just sweeps their hands completely off of you to get upfield immediately.
On 2nd and 10, Rogers. This is underneath and caught by Zach Rasmussen, big tight end from Texas. It'll be 3rd and short.
Another snap, catch, throw, ball's out. Still with pressure. Can Rogers keep this up? Keep in mind, he can tuck and run. So if you don't maintain your pass rush lane integrity, we've already seen Rogers able to escape and get upfield to get a conversion.
Been running the clock down as much as he can to control the football and keep that Bama defense on the field. He's under pressure and gets out of there. There is a flag on the field, and he has run for the first down. But will it stand?
You see the flag coming back from the center judge. Oftentimes it's for holding, especially when you see a quarterback escape. You see those offensive linemen aren't apt to let go. They get locked up and don't let go in time.
Holding, offense, number 74, 10-yard penalty, third down.
Kedro Lewis, he's a right tackle, so whenever you see the quarterback escape, it's typically to the side that he escapes, so you gotta let him go. Doesn't let him go. You see Brazel, he's got his arms. The defenders always flail like they're on fire. Oh gosh, I just can't believe what just happened.
Would you not do the same thing?
Oh,
you ever play?
Yeah, I mean, were I to be a defensive end, I'd do it. And Kedro Lewis, the hard part is he's locked up, and you don't always feel the quarterback escaping. You don't know to turn loose. A costly penalty on what would otherwise have been a conversion. Rodgers showing that escapability once again.
10th play of the drive for the Warhawks, but it's a 3rd and 14. Rodgers doesn't have anything open and just runs out of bounds into the Bama bench with Will Anderson Jr. hot on his tail.
See a couple of penalties to get him off schedule. The big holding penalty, digs a hole. Got to be frustrated if you're on that ULM sideline. You had back-to-back empty offensive possessions for the Alabama offense. You're able to capitalize on one of them. You're moving the football. You get a holding penalty, backs you up, and now you're playing field position again.
You got to worry about Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Yeah.
Who has 2 40-plus yard punt returns so far in this half.
Well, the only thing worse than the punt cover game so far for ULM has been their ability to actually get the punt off. One blocked, scooped and scored.
Timeout, ULM, they're first of the half.
Man, you gotta think about this. You gotta make sure you don't kick it away.
Timeout on the field.
Warhawks trying to use up as much time as possible. They are leading the quarter 7-0 here with 2:05 to go. Week is an annual back-to-school effort led by the College Football Playoff Foundation that brings college sports together to recognize and show appreciation to great teachers across the country. To support Extra Yard for Teachers recognition and resources initiative, follow at CFP Extra Yard or scan the QR code for more. Before the start of the game, Nick's Kids Teacher Excellence Award honored 50 teachers from the Tuscaloosa County School System for their dedication and work in and out of the classroom to help students reach their potential. Coach Saban's organization has done so much as that ball goes out of bounds inside the 10. Nice diagonal punt that's out at the 7. It's a 53-yard punt. Tide has 1:57 to go in the quarter, and they better score some points if they don't want to hear from Coach Saban.
Owners Insurance halftime report. Dari Doring, Watson, Spikes. We'll show you what's going on the plains as Penn State and Auburn, they are at the half right now. Ole Miss cruising, Georgia still Georgia. What do you make of Alabama so far, Shaquille?
They are rolling on the defensive side and especially special teams. Offensively, only 17 plays, so they can't get into a rhythm.
As you all have said, Coach Saban may have some words at the break, guys.
Yeah. See what he has to say to Coley Harvey here in a minute. They got to go 93 yards in less than 2 minutes to score some points. This is a good start. Jahmyr Gibbs gets up near the 20. It's a pickup of 13.
They open up the formation, and you look at it last week, this is a comfort zone really for the offense. They had a lot of success and multiple receivers out wide.
They had 116 yards and 2 touchdowns on their first 3 drives. 8 plays for 1 yard before that last play. Young holds on to it, and that's the first catch for Cameron Latu. And he gets up to the 24. He's been one of Bryce Young's favorite targets. He's a little slow to get up too.
Yeah, Looked like he might have gotten twisted around a little bit. Pressure on Bryce Young as he released that last pass.
Quincy Ledet was on top of him. Young quickly gets rid of this one, and he finds some space. Trayshawn Holden, who had that first touchdown catch for 15 more.
Nice protection, good clean pocket. We talked about Trayshawn Holden, Jahmyr Gibbs, both the primary targets in the passing game coming into today's contest.
Holden only had one career touchdown catch before this season as Latu grabs another one for 8 more. Trayshawn now has 3 touchdown catches on this season. Of course, Latu last year had a school record for tight ends with 8 touchdown catches. Those might be the guys, Holden and Latu, that turn into the primary targets for Bryce Young in this offense. No Jamison Williams, no John Mechie this year.
Jermaine Burton in the slot to the left.
Young tries the deep ball, and did Latu grab that? Yes.
How about the athleticism of Latu on this catch? And the speed, for that matter. Bryce Young wanted him all the way on this throw. Liked his matchup pre-snap, stuck with him right over top of Tavier Williams.
Hard to believe that guy was a defensive lineman when he came to school here, making a grab like that for 38 more.
Timeout, Alabama. They're first of the half.
Tide has a couple timeouts.
Please reset the game clock to 58 seconds.
Left. Remember, at halftime, you can watch the live performance of the $1 Million Band on SEC Network Plus. Start streaming now on the ESPN app. Now, I have a feeling they're going to be amped up because they weren't in Austin, Texas last Saturday.
Right.
Remember
yeah,
that
they kind of hosed.
They didn't like their position in
DKR
system? Stadium up there in the stratosphere, and they said, well, we're just not going to go.
Yeah. Can we get seats in the Milky Way? I mean, anything somewhere proximate to where the playing field is.
I think they're going to be playing Eyes of Texas on the return visit because of that.
Probably not. You see Bryce Young, though, starting to stretch the field a little bit now today on throws of 10-plus yards, 5 of 6, 131 yards, a touchdown. And that 38-yarder to Latu was the longest pass play the Tides had all season.
In the red zone here for Young, where he's been perfect. Look at this time again. Wide open. Hello to Amari Nyblack, the true freshman with his first ever catch, and it's a touchdown.
Time. Had so much time in the pocket. Look at this. Just completed War and Peace. Now I'm going to throw a touchdown pass.
The late, great Ken Stabler, of course, played here. When he went to the Raiders, he had all that time back in the 70s. That looked like what Bryce Young had there. And now it's 35-7, and maybe Coach Saban isn't as hot under the collar about what he's seen here in the second quarter.
Big drive, no doubt. But what's interesting is, once again, they go into the kind of a hurry-up offense. Now, this wasn't like a fire drill. Well, you had time and actually left 52 seconds on the clock. But they have operated better. And it's almost like a mindset shift. And they go in there and they kind of open things up a little bit. No huddle, sense of urgency. Bama's been able to move the football. You go back to what Gibbs mentioned, what Bill O'Brien also allowed, is that they do seem to perform well. Bryce Young can see and diagnose what a defense is doing easily.
It was 6 plays, 93 yards in a minute 5. He was 5 for 5 on that drive for 80 yards and a touchdown. How about your first ever catch in college? Congratulations, Mr. Nyblack. True freshman from St. Petersburg, Florida.
He was over there in the route tree when Bryce Young was trying to maybe still force a ball into the end zone, ended up just rushing it in himself. Nyblack was right there in the end zone nearby.
Hey, reminder, after Florida plays South Florida tonight, SEC football final is back. Dari, CD, Benjamin, and Takio take you through the biggest stories of the day and break down all the games. Again, that's around 10:30 or whenever the Gators and the Bulls are done, right here on SEC Network and the ESPN app. Gators didn't look good in the second half against the Wildcats, but it's early. Billy Napier obviously is going to have to put his prints on that program. There are going to be some ups and downs.
Yeah, it might have been a little bit, not a false positive, but maybe we were a little bit too jubilant. That win over Utah took a little too much out of that game. Anthony Richardson still working his way into being an everyday starter.
Boy, the Cats look for real. Isaiah Phillips gets up near the 28-yard line just to pick up a 3, and looks like Terry Bowden
playing for half.
Playing for the half here. Much better than what Coach Saban's offense did in the first drive of the second quarter.
Well, 4 plays minus 6 yards is concerning. You're still going to finish the half with having only run 23 offensive snaps. Last week, you only ran 27 offensive snaps in the first half. It's hard to get experience, especially at receiver and some of these new faces, when you're not on the field.
Coach Saban's team has faced some adversity. Kirby Smart, the head coach of Georgia, said we haven't faced any yet. We need to if we're going to win a national championship. You got to go through some of the ups and downs of the season. Certainly Nick Saban's team has done that so far, but they're still unblemished, and they're up 35-7 with the Heisman Trophy winner at the break.
Plenty of bright spots he can point to, but I feel certain he's going to emphasize in the areas of improvement.
Coley is with Coach Saban.
Coach, you guys had the three areas of the game where you scored: offense, defense, and special teams. Also, that big 93-yard touchdown drive. What's your biggest takeaway from this half?
Well, I think consistency. Just, the way we played offense early, it was great that we got the 2-minute drive before the half. But, there was a time there where we were just sputtering a little bit on offense. Defensively, they're tightening the box up and just kind of running the ball, trying to shrink the game. So, need to play the run a little better as well.
All right, thanks very much, Coach.
Thank you both. It's time now to go to the studio for the Auto Owners Insurance Halftime Report with the well-dressed Dari Noka, Chris Doring, Benjamin Watson, and Takio Spikes.
TZ, we thank you much. You are correct, sir. It is time for the Auto.
The game recorded by the Bama defense. They'll try to hit the man out of the backfield. It goes off his head. Will Anderson, interception, 10-5, touchdown, Alabama. Should the Tide find the goal line, McClellan single set back to the left of Young. He will roll the pocket himself left side. Cat and mouse, stops, spins, gets into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. What a play from Bryce Young.
I love Saturday Sounds with the great Chris Stewart. It's brought to you by Sonos, the Tide leading Louisiana Monroe as we get ready for the third quarter, 35-7. Matt Stinchcomb, Coley Harvey, and Taylor Zarzer with you here in T-Town in Bryant-Denny Stadium. And Stinch, in that first half, you had Bryce Young, you had Will Anderson both making big plays, but you didn't get the consistent performance that I think Nick Saban wanted.
There's no question that offensively they can't be that thrilled. Now, obviously you have a 93-yard drive to end the first half, but it's the empty possessions that have to concern you, and with really good field position. They basically were playing on a 50-yard field. You turn the ball over on downs, you punt it away. There was an interception on an ill-advised throw from Bryce Young. Some concerning decisions and really developments offensively in the first half for the Tide.
The Tide will kick it to the Warhawks to start the second half. Monroe starts at the 25-yard line, down to Coley Harvey.
During halftime, I spoke with ULM head coach Terry Bowden, and he told me that he felt like early in that first half, his team came out fearful, timid. They were a little bit, the situation was a little too big for his Warhawks. He did say, however, that on this first possession of the second half, they've got to get back to what they did in the second quarter. That was playing a little more within themselves, playing a little more comfortably. He said if ULM can score right here first, they have a chance to stay within this ball game. He also said, hey, we've got to play as hard as we can for these next 30 minutes because Alabama is a great team.
Well, it's barometer, right? This program was one of the worst in all of FBS football when he took it over 2 years ago. And the fact that you can be competitive with a team that's competing for national championships each season lets you know what you got.
There's no doubt. I go back to late in the second quarter, that holding penalty that took you from third and manageable to third and basically you're going to punt it away, and they did. Otherwise, Louisiana Monroe had an opportunity. This second quarter, they piled up 112 yards, a score, possessed the ball for nearly the entirety of the quarter.
Malik Jackson got 3 yards. He has 38 rushing and a touchdown. The only touchdown Alabama's given up at home in 6 quarters so far. Another muddy pocket, and the ball is out from Rogers. Boogie Knight slipped, but he was covered up as well. It's third down.
We talked about Chandler Rogers in the first half. The guy was fearless now. I know that Terry Bowden was talking about his team. They were a little bit worried, a little tentative. Rogers wasn't, and he easily could have been because he's been hit plenty. Got hit on that throw. Somehow, the Alabama Crimson Tide's found ways to get to the passer. Byron Young, inside out, able to collapse the pocket and get right in the face to affect Chandler Rogers on his throws.
Warhawks are 4 of 10 on third down today. Rogers runs and throws, and it's caught by Rasmussen, but 2 yards shy of the first down.
Rogers a little bit confusion pre-snap there. You could see he was trying to move Rasmussen across the formation pre-snap, knowing that they were going to roll quickly. Threw that ball behind him, and Terry Bowden did not get what he wanted to open this half up with a scoring opportunity. Instead, it's a quick possession. And as we noted in the first half, the punting game has been quite adventurous so far.
McKinstry coming into today at a 3.4 average per return, 43-yard average today with 2 returns over 40, and here he comes again. Got a block, got space, jumps, and is past the 40, up to the 43. Mr. Stinchcomb, tell America where we went to eat last night.
I mean, you talk about special teams adventure. This was a culinary adventure. We went to Forte. They're not open yet, but it was phenomenal. It's located here in the Alamite Hotel, and it was a culinary experience, to say the least. I mean, everything that we had. Was it lobster? Was it the oysters? Was it the dessert that the chef, as you see there's Jacob Stoll's a brilliant chef. I mean, that guy, his medium is food, but that guy's an artist.
He is, and Coach Saban's involved in that place. Alamite, downtown Tuscaloosa. Great ball from Bryce Young to Trayshawn Holden. You mentioned the hotel, it opened last night. The restaurant's opening in the next few days. They got another rooftop bar up there too. It's spectacular.
A roll call, I think it is.
That's right.
We'll play on the Roll Tide, as you see, a little shaken up after that play. Speaking of fearless plays, Trayshawn Holden knew he was going to take a shot, came up with the catch. Tavier Williams shaken up for the Warhawks.
It's a sophomore from Louisiana. Appears to be okay, and we'll get off the field. Stinch, I think that it's going to take a couple more weeks probably before Bryce Young feels completely comfortable with all these fresh faces. And Mechie, Williams, those were the guys he counted on last year. He has Burton, he has Holden, Brooks, Latu. Obviously, Gibbs has been terrific out of the backfield, but still working through some of the chemistry so far this season. Wants to throw again, and he's going to take off and get a few yards, but up to the 40-yard line. And I'm sure Bill O'Brien is a bit frustrated how these Bama receivers are having trouble getting open the last couple weeks.
That's the story in a lot of ways. It's this, the separation to be able to give Bryce Young a window to throw into. And you talk about the lack of chemistry. Until you've earned his trust, it's hard to want to throw a guy open. You don't know what he's going to do with that football if he hadn't created separation.
There's another, well, it's picked off. It's thrown behind Ja'Cory Brooks, and Deuce Mayberry gets Bryce Young's second interception of the day.
Well, just as we were saying, it kind of implicating the receivers. It's a bad ball from Bryce Young. You don't see this often. We've seen a bad decision in the first half. Now on the RPO, as he's stepping into it, that ball was high and behind Ja'Cory Brooks.
He had his hands on it.
I think Brooks could have come up with that one. It wasn't exactly where you wanted it as a passer. Brooks should have come up with that catch for his quarterback. Not a typically characteristic throw from Bryce Young. Off target, sure. But Ja'Cory Brooks could have come up with that catch.
Didn't have an interception on the season until today, and he's got 2, and now very quickly it's Rodgers to Rasmussen near midfield.
Well, last time we saw an interception from Bryce Young, what happened? The defense got the ball right back for Alabama with a deflection and an interception by Will Anderson. Now they're going to have to find a way to step up and answer here. Obviously, Rodgers looking to take advantage of it. The first down on that first play.
Long look at the sidelines for Rodgers. There's Henry To'oTo'o, a tackling machine. This is Phillips. Can't find anything. 2nd and 10.
It's just not going to be a ton of running room tackle to tackle. We talked about that unit. They squeeze all the air. There's little daylight on inside runs. That would have been true even last week versus Texas. A lot of missed tackles. You had defenders in place. You had a lot of opportunities for negative yardage plays. 6 tackles for loss that just weren't made, where you had a defender right there to make it. Byron Young, DJ Dale, Tim Smith. We've mentioned all of these guys.
Rodgers high, looking for Boogie Knight, but here comes a flag. Brian Branch had an arm on it.
I'm wondering if that ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage.
Pass interference, defense, number 14. The ball would place in the spot of the foul, automatic first down.
Well, Boygby got his arm up. 92 get his arm up late. I'm having a hard time seeing what the PI was, and I don't know that that ball wasn't deflected at the line of scrimmage. It did look like the trajectory of the pass changed. I think that's what Coach Saban was observing to the officials.
There's no question that's what he was observing. We get another look at it.
The previous play is under a video view for a possible tip of the pass.
Yeah. You see Coach Saban, he's just making a suggestion.
Sure.
Something maybe, hey, here's something to consider, guys. That's all I'm saying. Now, we talked with the defenders yesterday. You know, there is a little bit of, not frustration, but awareness. Ball comes out quickly. How do you affect the passer with batted balls? And watch it, Boygby. Yeah, it wasn't a Boygby that got it. I think it was Deontay Lawson.
Yes, freshman.
Yeah.
It's his right hand. And clearly you can tell the trajectory of the ball changes after he gets past Lawson's hand. You can't really see the contact. There you get a better look.
And I will say, you know, you see Branch playing over the top of the receiver, but it didn't look like, you know, usually you see that trailing hand, the hand on their back, but unless it affects the receiver in their ability to make the catch, I was a little surprised to see a flag come out at all. But regardless, that ball looked like it was clearly tipped by Deontay Lawson. So watch it. Boygby gets it up. He misses. Lawson doesn't. You can see the nose of the ball change. That's a duck, effectively. You don't see many of those from Rogers.
After video review, the ball was tipped by number 32 of the defense. Therefore, there is no DPI. It'll be 3rd and 10 at the 46-yard line.
That's a great job. I mean, for the officials to work their way through that. And obviously at the behest of the Alabama sideline, but able to get that call right.
Clearly passion matters too.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, emphasis.
So it's 3rd and 10 instead of a fresh set of downs for Chandler Rogers. Chandler has nothing, and down he goes. To'o. It's a loss of 11. I give some credit to Chris Braswell for getting in there as well.
They kind of baited up and made it confusing for Andrew Henry, who was in there in protection. So it looked as if Lawson was going to blitz initially. He froze, kind of spied Rogers, and To'o triggered on his blitz.
First team All-SEC player coming into the season, the leading tackler for Alabama last year. Sensational player at Tennessee for 2 years as well. McKinstry has another chance and another great return, shoestring tackle. And past the 45-yard line. Will Reichard was the SEC Special Teams Player of the Week last week. Hope you're watching closely, Birmingham. Look, even a smile from Coach Saban. Dari, they got a chance to hit the over on the win total today.
How about that?
Already would be their 3rd win of the season. Alabama up 35-7 here, and Bryce Young feeling some pressure. There's a couple of Warhawks in the backfield, Anthony Campbell and Jabari Johnson. Bill O'Brien is the 2nd-year offensive coordinator for the Crimson Tide, 53 years old. Of course, was the head coach at Penn State and the Houston Texans in the NFL, making the transition back to college. And see the frustration on his face at the moment as his offense has been sputtering a bit today. It's McClellan gets inside the 50 at the 49. What do you think the biggest issue is, Stinch?
Well, you heard Coach Saban talk about it, consistency. Part of it's just the ability to maintain possession of the ball, move the stick. A couple interceptions today. You're putting the football away, you get stopped on downs. You know, there clearly is, I don't want to say a disconnect, but lack of chemistry with those wide receivers. A lot of new faces that they've been inserted into this offense. And so because of that, you haven't seen an identity really emerge. They have operated best in the 2-minute drills.
Young can't find anybody open, dumps it off underneath to Gibbs. Gibbs has been the safety valve, and he gives Bryce and Bama another first down.
That's been the story this year. Bryce doesn't like what he sees downfield, even when he has time. So he checks it down to Jahmyr Gibbs. A lot of times Gibbs is the intended receiver. The play would be designed for him to end up with the ball in his hands. That time, nice block by Isaiah Bond.
And Bryce Young passes Jalen Hurts for 9th all-time in Bama career passing yards with that completion. Now again to Gibbs with more room to roam. Another first down and a touchdown. The Georgia Tech transfer is doing it all in his first year for the Tide.
We just got done talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, a little head and shoulder fake. They dump it down to him. Look at Kendrick Law. That was one block. See if you can pick up the second and third. That's a true freshman out there blocking for Jahmyr Gibbs. 2 new faces in the passing game. That was the difference in that play. Jahmyr Gibbs, a great runner with the ball in his hands. Nice blocking, though, from his offensive teammate and Kendrick Law downfield.
Reichard makes it 42-7. Bryce Young has now tied Mac Jones third all-time with 57 touchdown passes. He gets a lot of help from Jahmyr Gibbs with the run after the catch. Touchdown Tide. On this stadium honors a legend. It's hard to believe that 40 years ago was Paul Bryant's last season as head coach of the Crimson Tide. The Bear won 323 games, 6 national titles, and 14 SEC championships. He was larger than life in this state, giving its people pride, mostly during a turbulent time. He was carried off the field in December of 1982, winning his last game versus Illinois in the Liberty Bowl. The following month, he passed away at the age of 69. The ride from Tuscaloosa to Birmingham takes about 45 minutes, and on every inch of roadside there were people paying their respects to a man that brought them such joy. Paul William Bryant hasn't been alive for 40 years, but no one has forgotten him. His imprint is everywhere in this city and in this state. And he is missed. Alfred Luke from near the goal line has got space. Reichard to beat, but caught from behind near midfield. As Malachi Moore makes the tackle. It's a 48-yard return by the freshman from New Orleans. And there is a flag down near the 25-yard line.
During the return, holding, receiving team, number 87. 10-yard penalty from the spot of the foul. First down.
And once again, those flags undoing some momentum plays for Louisiana Monroe. Saw a holding penalty diffuse an offensive possession that was starting to gain steam, and then this. And you could see it. Top of your screen there. Once again, the defenders always very helpfully flailing their arms so that you see those holds. A legitimate call. Brings back an excellent return.
Coach Bryant is #1 stench in all-time wins in the SEC, and this man is #2, head of the HBC. Mobile's finest, Mr. Vince Dooley. Malik Jackson has nowhere to roam. Another tackle in the backfield with To'o and friends back there. It's a loss of 2.
The coaches on that list. Well, that is an amazing list of head coaches. Among the best in all of college football. You can't just narrow that down to a conference.
And of course I love giving Vince Dooley shout outs given where I'm from. We ran into Derek Dooley yesterday, who's now on Coach Saban's staff, Vince's son.
Yes. Spent a lot of his career coaching for Coach Saban before taking over for a couple of programs of his own, Louisiana Tech and Tennessee.
2nd and 12, Henry doesn't get much. I think all Alabama fans are wondering how much longer this is going to last. Coach Saban looks like the healthiest 70-year-old man you've ever seen, and as passionate about what he's doing as he's ever been. You've been covering his entire career. He loves talking ball with you and seems to be as fresh as ever.
Nothing seemingly has changed, not from what I can perceive. I mean, the fire is still there, the engagement, all of it.
Keeping it himself is Rogers, and he'll be short of the first down as Deontay Lawson from Mobile Christian High School has gotten off to a good start this year. 4th down, and it's another Warhawks punt.
And Deontay Lawson's put together a pretty nice game. We've mentioned his name a handful of times. Pete Golding, as we stated, said, I got to do a better job of getting him in there. Not only just from a stamina standpoint, make sure that he can contribute. And as we've pointed out many times, McKinstry has been so close to breaking one of these returns.
I don't know if Terry Bowden or if Devin McCormick can hear Terry Bowden, but you might not want to punt this to number 1. Well done. Into the Warhawks bench. And Bama will take over at their own 43-yard line. Kool-Aid all smiles. Henry To'oTo'o has played terrific football today. Jim Nagy, the Senior Bowl, what do you think of him as a prospect?
We've had some outside linebackers from Alabama in the Senior Bowl over the last few years, Terrell Lewis, Anthony Jennings, but you got to go all the way back to 2016 to find an off-the-ball linebacker from. You talk to that Alabama staff and they'll tell you he's one of the smartest players they've had in the program in recent years. He's also one of the most instinctive, fast-reacting players in college football. And that's a big reason why Henry To'oTo'o right now is one of our highest-graded linebackers for this year's Senior Bowl.
Roydale Williams with a 9-yard run as To'oTo'o is watching on the sidelines. What do you think of the transition he's made from Tennessee to Tuscaloosa?
I kind of thought early on that he would just kind of disappear, not disappear entirely, but amongst the playmakers defensively for Alabama, they would kind of just be a guy. Nice run downhill by Roydale. He has been way more than that. It was way more than that even last year. You know, Tennessee, you're like, look, there weren't nearly as many guys to make tackles in place. And so who else was going to do it? Henry To'oTo'o, smart player, talented, has range, but he's been very productive. And not just, you know, from a statistical standpoint. They coveted his leadership.
Outstanding young man, too, that Coach Golding was saying yesterday needed to find his voice as a leader here, and he's done just that. Meanwhile, Williams, 9, 16, and 7-yard runs in the last 3 plays. He slipped on that 4th down run last week in the 4th quarter as Alabama tried to in the game against Texas. Still trying to find who the mail carrier is for the Crimson Tide. Gibbs, that all-purpose back. Williams showing flashes on this drive. It's 1st and goal, Alabama.
I'll tell you what, he's not scared to get up and down. North-south. Foot in the ground, get straight downhill. Just shifty enough, almost, you know, in some ways reminds you of like the Todd Gurley types, where they just kind of slalom their way through the defense with that nice forward lean. You see, it looks like Louisiana Monroe Trey Odom a little bit dinged up at the end of that last play.
Monday at 7 Eastern, Thinking Out Loud is back for another season with Spencer Hall and Richard Johnson. They'll break down the weekend on the gridiron, talk about the hottest topics for the coming week, and preview Saturday's biggest games. It's right here on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. The other side of the state, the Nittany Lions having their way right now with the Auburn Tigers up 31-6 as they go to the 4th.
Wow. And you think about how close that game was on the road last year in a whiteout for Auburn, narrowly missing a victory versus the Big Ten Penn State team. And wow, to get beaten down like that at home, that is a tough look.
Meanwhile, it looks like old Alabama offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin has found his quarterback at Ole Miss, Jackson Dart. And the Rebels lead Georgia Tech 42-0 in Atlanta.
Wow. When you think about the opener in that, you know, Georgia Tech, Clemson. Georgia Tech gave Clemson a game up until about the second half.
And it's another Roydale Williams run, staying on his feet and scoring a touchdown. How did he get out of there?
God, you got like the leg drive from Roydale Williams. Keep this play alive. Close your eyes, move your feet. Big scrum. Never stopped moving, was still making progress. No whistle, keep it alive. Muscle your way into the end zone. Wow.
He was the entire drive. All 5 plays on the drive for 57 yards and a touchdown for the junior from Hueytown, Alabama. Reichert makes it 49-7. Let's go back to the studio and our friend Dari Noka.
Guys, how about it? They're underway at Tiger Stadium. Mississippi State, LSU. Mississippi State held the Tigers on their first possession, and Jaquavius Marks, part of that revamped Mississippi State run game, takes it to the house. They strike first, 6-0.
Dar, I know you remember when the Pirate Mike Leach made his debut 2 years ago as head coach of Mississippi State and beat LSU, and they're down there at Tiger Stadium with an early lead today.
That was crazy, wasn't it? KJ Costello at quarterback just bombing away. This year, Mississippi State has said, look, you're going to drop 8 versus us. You know what we're going to do? We're going to hit you with the meat tenderizer. We're going to start running this football at your 3-man front until you say, oh, wait a minute. Maybe we start throwing some more defensive bodies at this thing. It has changed, I think, the defensive proposition whenever you face the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Jack Martin, the Troy transfer, getting the kickoff here. Tide empties the bench. And by the way, UL Monroe did come in the game to play quarterback on that last play as he handed it to Roydell Williams. Monroe starts at the 25. It's never too early to look ahead at the upcoming college football season. We'll have our SEC Now football schedule release special for next year, featuring Matt Stinchcomb's analysis. Tuesday at 7 Eastern. Break down each school and look at the best games for next year. You can always watch it on the ESPN app from anywhere. The SEC always gets their schedule out before everybody else, just to get you excited about the future.
Yeah, that way you catch it right before everybody transfers to everybody else's program.
I knew you were gonna. Yeah, in this day and age, it's a little harder to keep track of what people are going to have in the future, but you can get excited about the matchups.
Oh,
at
no
least,
question. Yeah, it's
regardless
a great idea.
of who plays. Here's Garrett Hable, the Louisiana Tech transfer. Speaking of transfers, he's in at quarterback, and he hands to Isaiah Phillips for 6 yards. It is kind of hard to wrap your mind or keep tabs on all of these guys that switch schools. In fact, the Warhawks brought 4 quarterbacks today. 3 of them have transferred in from other schools, including this man.
You're thinking it's so fluid now. In week 1, we had Troy. You know, they picked up a quarterback in Seth Dagey who had been there for, you know, a couple of days. He actually got some snaps in that game.
Phillips tries to move the pile ahead 2 yards further. It'll be 3rd down and short as Dallas Turner still in there, makes another tackle. Speaking of Troy, they lead App State in the 4th quarter in Boone, where they had College Game Day today.
Wow. Isn't that so? I mean, you talked about it. A lot of folks talked about it, even on game day. This is upset alert. You know, you get these teams, they rise up, they have a huge win, and then there's this emotional vacuum that's created. Can you maintain the momentum? Can you stay focused? Nick Saban was talking about, can you play to that standard that you've now set for yourself? You beat a top 10 team. Now you might mess around and turn around and lose to Troy.
It's Andrew Henry that is right at that yellow line where DeMarco Helms met him.
What a win that would be for John Sumrall in year 1 at Troy.
App is driving, though, with under 5 minutes to go. ESPN app just tells me everything.
Yeah, how many screens you got going over there, man?
I got a few.
It's like NORAD.
Dari got me all excited, you know. Mississippi State and LSU already in action on ESPN.
How about Kansas State going down today? Lost to Tulane.
Another good punt, but another chance for McKinstry. How does he get out of there? He did step out of bounds back at the 19-yard line. He did make Nick Saban smile just a little while ago. Here's some more from Dari Noka in the studio.
Well, you know, kickoff approaching, much anticipated matchup in Fayetteville. Sam Pittman in Arkansas against former Arkansas head coach Bobby Petrino and Missouri State. Wouldn't you love to be a fly on the field in that conversation there? KJ Jefferson, of course, having a phenomenal season to this point for the 10th ranked Razorbacks. That game coming up top of the hour.
What if Coach Pittman's like, hey, do you ever go eat at Long John Silver's?
Did you try out did you ever eat the prime rib at Herman's in Fayetteville?
Oh, man. If you didn't, you blew it.
Jalen Milroe hands it to McClellan with the flag down. It would be a pickup of 10, but conversation with Kyle Olson and his friends, with Nick Saban eagerly looking on.
There is no holding foul, number 65 of the offense. Resulting play is first down.
J.C. Latham, you are off the hook. That's Jalen Milroe, the Katy, Texas redshirt freshman, who has been the backup to Bryce Young the last couple of years, getting all sorts of valuable experience behind Bryce. See his numbers on the season, a touchdown and an interception, handing it again to McClellan. Last drive was the Roydell Williams show. Jace wants his turn.
He's showing a second gear. Boy, a couple of times, little stutter step, stop and go in space. Nice patience by McClellan. Runs through a missed tackle, creates a second one, lowers his shoulder, picks up another 2 or 3 yards right there on the boundary.
20-yard run for McClellan, another Texas high school product like Milroe. And it's Roydell that will get a couple. Certainly Milroe's going to have his chance, Stinch, in 2023. But as you were saying earlier, it's anybody's guess who plays quarterback next year for any program these days in college football.
I mean, if there was a position where the transfer portal has been more impactful, and really, frankly, where it's functioned the best, it's quarterback. It has seemingly worked very well, finding other places for guys to play, not necessarily meaning that Jalen Milroe would need to do that.
It's a little bit taller, a little bit bigger than Bryce Young, 6'2", 212 pounds.
We did the spring game here, and we actually called it from the field, and I would just kind of follow the offense from just standing behind the unit. Jalen Milroe, he looks the part now. I mean, this he's a heck of an athlete. They're wanting him to press more into the, as the ball comes out on that exchange. He and Roydell at the mesh point. But he made plays with his legs, and they're wanting him to develop more in that passing game, and he has. He's made strides in that area.
I mean, who better to learn from than Bryce Young?
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien could have talked for hours yesterday about how impressed he's been as the play caller for Bryce these last couple of years. Coach Saban wants to talk to Jalen for a second.
As talented as any quarterback he's ever worked with.
That is the end of the third quarter.
Alabama a quarter away from going to 3-0 on the young season, enjoying things in T-Town.
Work in progress, but one thing is a known. Bryce Young, playmaker, great football player, quarterback. Started out hot. Trayshawn Holden find his way into the end zone, pushing the ball downfield. Didn't like what he saw on the rollout, kept it himself. The guy can run, and he's able to jam one in there. True freshman Amari Nyblack on the receiving end of that touchdown throw from Bryce Young. That hadn't been perfect. A couple of picks, one of them definitely on Young, kind of hung one out there on a play action that he probably should have just thrown away. The other on a deflected pass. But boy, do they have a fantastic building block at quarterback. And this offense still evolving in that passing game, especially with all the new faces they have at wide receiver.
And we were talking to Bill O'Brien about the comeback wins. You think of last year's remarkable come-from-behind win against Auburn, and then what happened last week against the Texas Longhorns. Coach O'Brien was talking about how the game is too fast for some. It's almost slower for Bryce Young than it is for everybody else, and he thrives in that moment. Just loves to be a leader, loves when there's adversity, and to correct anything that could go wrong. He had 2 interceptions today. You'd never know it by his demeanor.
No, and you wouldn't have known if those interceptions were for touchdowns. I mean, the guy is just steady.
This is Hable taking off and getting a couple of yards. Just one last thing on Bryce Young. I think that, as Coach O'Brien was saying yesterday, when you go to Mobile for the Senior Bowl or Indianapolis for the Combine, scouts are going to say, well, he's only 6 feet tall. And O'Brien admitted it. If I didn't know the guy, I'd say the same thing. But O'Brien, after coaching in the NFL so long, said, this guy absolutely can be a star in the league. Hurts, Jones, Tua, all starting right now. Bryce Young certainly could do the same next year for an NFL program.
And how invaluable is that? You know, for these NFL coaches, talk to a guy, Bill O'Brien, not very far removed from his tenure in the NFL. And this is a guy that's worked with some pretty sporty quarterbacks. You know, you think about the Tom Brady's of this world. Deshaun Watson at Houston, just remarkable talents. For him to say that to NFL scouts or personnel people, hey, don't pay any attention to the size, okay? Don't worry about his height, any of that business. This guy can play.
It's 3rd and 1. And it's Henry stopped in the backfield. Coley, you've been around Bryce the last couple days.
Yeah, Taylor, the coaches certainly have Bryce Young's respect, and it's primarily what you guys were just talking about, but it's also his leadership that they're impressed with. His teammates also have his respect, and that's something that has existed throughout his tenure here at Alabama, and it's really even increased in the last couple of days. On Thursday, thanks to an NIL deal that Bryce has, he was able to gift his teammates some headphones. The reaction to that in the locker room on Thursday was through the roof. A lot of excitement, a lot of screaming of joy, screams of joy from his teammates. Talking to running back Jahmyr Gibbs yesterday, he said that he was not shocked.
ULM, they're first of the half.
He was not shocked to see the headphones coming, but he was certainly glad to receive them.
Oh, you said it. They were jubilant. I mean, it was like the moment of the season so far, as Bryce shared the love with his teammates. His Tide is rolling against the Warhawks today.
I'll pick this.
Wow, another blast. Wants his turn and wants to take it to the house. Good night. Half of the bench goes over to greet Brian Branch, the junior from Fayetteville, Georgia, is now on the ground, and Kool-Aid smiling, saying, come on, man. I thought I was the star punt returner. 68-yard touchdown return for Branch.
God, talk about conflicting emotions for Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's got to be sitting there going, are you kidding me? All day. He's been sniffing around a punt return for a touchdown. Brian Branch finally blew the lid off of it.
228 punt return yards today for the Crimson Tide, a single game record.
The punting game, that's been the story of this one. These short fields, all game long, block punt, scoop and score, and then finally, a punt return for a touchdown. Alabama's been flirting with this all game long. There was really one punt, went out of bounds, was a nice kick. Otherwise, it's been dangerous.
Alabama is now number 60.
Kendall Randolph going back to his offensive guard position. He's been.
Look at that celebration there, Stitch.
Oh, man. Just mobbing the guy. I will say that whenever stuff like that happens, like Branch, he's exhausted now. As much from the run back.
Yeah.
Probably the celebration was even more exhausting.
He's
just
done.
trying to stay on his feet.
He's done.
Look at McKinstry. He's like, are you serious, man?
Kool-Aid wants another chance, I think, now.
Yeah, well, he's the guy that loosened the jar on the pickles, right? And finally it pops open because Brian Branch shows up.
ULM called timeout before the punt, by the way, and McKinstry was out there and came off of the field, and then they put Brian Branch out there. This will be returned inside the 15, and it's Abraham Alsey that gets it out past the 30-yard line. 12:31 to go in Tuscaloosa. Brian Branch gives Alabama their latest special teams touchdown today. Rolling home. Thanks, Dari. Tuscaloosa approaching Saturday night. Oh, so right. 12:31 left in the fourth quarter. And it is Hable who keeps it himself, and he does not get much. As Terry and Arnold in there for the tackle. Here's your SEC scoreboard today. Kentucky shutting out Youngstown State. Vandy gets their third win. Penn State rolling against Auburn. And Georgia beats South Carolina 48-7 in all of college football so far this season. Georgia has been the horse.
Cox just aren't ready to compete with the upper echelon right now, and that's where Georgia finds itself among the best teams in the country. They are operating very, very effectively.
Henry gets a yard, and that is all. It'll be third down.
Crazy scores. I mean, for App State coming back, beating Troy last minute. Georgia Southern looks like they might drop a game here today to UAB after knocking off Nebraska. The Sun Belt has been definitely the fun belt so far this year. App State, of course, would win it on a Hail Mary, a 53-yarder, deflected, all kinds of craziness.
Incomplete in front of Fred Lloyd Jr. That's two heartbreaking losses for college programs in this state today. Troy and South Alabama both losing at the gun.
South Alabama dropping what, a 1-point loss to UCLA on the road? I wish the folks at home could have seen Kevin Maloney, our stats guy, reenacting the final play of the App State game.
It was interesting.
Just the Academy would like to recognize that performance.
It's a chance for Isaiah Bond at the 17-yard line. They just keep bringing new faces off of the bench and crushing the Warhawks in special teams.
Wherever fun happens, Academy Sports and Outdoors is there.
Crimson Tide having a big day today against the Warhawks. Trey Sanders is in the backfield. Jalen Milroe still at quarterback, and Sanders, big bruising tailback, 6 feet, 220 pounds from Port St. Joe, Florida, with 9 more. They thought this guy could be the next star in Tuscaloosa, but he has had all sorts of adversity.
Injured a lot, had that car accident, horrible. Miracle, really, he's still out here playing football and has been able to contribute. You think about the time last year, even in the SEC championship game, able to spell Brian Robinson. But he really has had quite a bit to overcome.
Good to see him finally healthy for the Crimson Tide. Sanders still running hard, gets down to the 20-yard line for 11 more. Alabama's got Gibbs, McClellan, Williams, and Sanders they can all count on, and Jamarian Miller has run the football effectively as a true freshman. Another banged up player for the Warhawks, that's Kevin Jones.
Timeout on the field for a player injury.
Tonight, SEC football finals back for another season with Dari, CD, Benjamin Watson, and Takeo Spikes. They'll take you through the biggest stories of the day, break down all the games. Approximately 10:30 Eastern or whenever South Florida and the Gators are done, right here on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. We were looking at that SEC scoreboard a moment ago. Penn State's going to beat Auburn. They're up 38-12, and they're in the red zone again.
Ripped off a big run on the ground. It's just what a difference a year makes with that matchup. Think about the way Auburn played on the road a year ago.
Stinch, what about the late one tonight in the SEC in College Station between the Aggies and the Miami Hurricanes?
You know, you talk about a team that's looking to circle the wagons. You know, you talk all week long, Jimbo Fisher talking about, hey, we're going to look at everything. Jobs are wide open. The one that most eyeballs are on and should be is quarterback. You've got a guy in Max Johnson who's won games, he's got a ton of experience in this conference. I get that Haynes King is just that one player, but the quarterback is the easiest way to impart the biggest change on your entire team. It's the most important position on the field at any one time. You have to think that they would reevaluate that competition. As you see, A&M flag flying up there. Obviously, we're able to squeak out a victory over the Tide a season ago. Rode all the momentum from a great recruiting class, and it has fizzled since then. Miami is a team that many think can contend for a division title in the ACC under the leadership of Mario Cristobal, former assistant here at Alabama.
Hate to see Kevin Jones in such pain there, the junior from Tallulah, Louisiana. Needing some help from his teammates to get off the field.
He was able to put some weight on that left leg for about half of the trip over to the sideline. That's always a sign, an encouraging sign.
Stinch, I know it's a rough day for Terry Bowden, but still a team that came from absolutely nowhere 2 years ago to winning 4 games, and they believe they have a chance to get to 6 wins this year. Trey Sanders doesn't have much around the right side there.
Coach Bowden made a good point last week. He said, look, for the first time in a long time, we had a game under control. We were able to put it on Nicholls State, able to empty the bench, and in a game that they finally had an opportunity to get some depth reps on the field.
Personal foul, face mask, offense, number 6, 15-yard penalty, second down.
See that very often, do you?
Correction, first down.
No, you really don't. You know, oftentimes those running backs, unless they grasp the face mask, they'll put their hand up on a stiff arm. Apparently, Trey Sanders grabbed the face mask when he was doing it. Oftentimes they get a lot of latitude when they put their hand up on those stiff arms, and as it is, they back the offense up significantly.
So Monroe is going to run out of there. This guy can fly. He might be the fastest player on the team, and you see why. There is a flag down again, though.
As Trey Sanders' helmet popped off, I think they're going to say the defender forced it off. Those helmets don't usually pop off on their own. A great block by Sanders downfield.
During the run, holding, offense, number 6, 10-yard penalty from the spot of the foul, first down.
Back-to-back penalties on Trey Sanders. Face mask and now a holding. He's blocking downfield. Jalen Milroe doesn't like what he sees. Tucks, runs. I don't know. I mean, it looked to me like he had control of the defender. Yeah, that one arm was on his back. The defender wasn't able to escape.
Young had to console him over there on the sideline. Milroe not on the same page with Isaiah Bond, and he's lucky that didn't get picked. It's Michael Batten was the defender there. Coley, how about Kevin Jones coming off the field for the Warhawks?
Don't.
All right, we'll get back to Coley in just a second. Jamarion Miller's in the backfield, and Miller is inside the 10-yard line. 1st and goal, Alabama.
Like the burst from Jamarion Miller. Wow. Grease Beebe shooting through that line of scrimmage.
12-yard run for the freshman from Tyler, Texas. Oh, bad snap, and Milroe has to jump on it back at the 19-yard line. You never would believe it with the score 56-7, but there have been some sloppy moments today for Alabama.
Yeah, some poor decisions. You know, an interception from Bryce Young he'd want back. There's some moments where you're going, I don't know. There's definitely some teachable moments, to say the least. Some stretches where the offense sputtered. The ball ended up on the ground. There was a bad exchange earlier. Bama able to recover both of those fumbles, but the ball bouncing out at the mesh point, and that time a bad exchange.
Milroe incomplete. He was looking for Kendrick Law, and he couldn't make the grab. Let's try Coley again.
Hey, Taylor, I've got a quick injury update on the Alabama sideline. That's cornerback Kyrie Jackson. Was in the medical tent for a very long time, getting evaluated by trainers. Appeared to be in there for a good 15 real-time minutes. I've got an update that it is a lower leg issue, a lower extremity issue. He is out for the rest of the game. That could also be because the score is a little bit out of hand, but he was in that tent for a very long time.
Well, let's see if that's an impact next week, Coley. Let's see what happens there. It's a timeout called by Louisiana Monroe.
They're second of the half.
Just over 8 minutes to go.
Timeout on the
Alabama
field.
about to be 3-0. At the Saturday MVP, brought to you by Sport Clips. Alabama has been all over the football field today, led by Will Anderson Jr., Mr. Stinchcomb.
Yeah, he's a good player. Making those negative yardage plays. Pick up an interception just for good measure today. You better believe he's on a lot of people's radar screens for Heisman consideration as a defender.
Milroe, watch out. He can fly, taking on defenders. Losing his helmet just shy of the goal line. Bill O'Brien said he thinks Milroe might be the fastest player on the entire team.
Wow.
Problem is, when you're going this fast, there's going to be one heck of a collision.
He ran right out of his helmet. We've seen it out of shoes. Watch him lower his shoulder. He's down as soon as that helmet comes popping off. He'll have to leave the game.
Ty Simpson with the hit, or excuse me, Ty Simpson coming in rather after that big hit. Simpson, of course, the freshman from Martin, Tennessee, who got some playing time against Utah State 2 weeks ago, and he's trying to get players in the right position and delay a game penalty unless a timeout was called.
Delay game, offense, 5-yard penalty, 4th down.
Another coaching opportunity that I'm sure will be seized upon. You see Simpson just trying to direct traffic under duress, with Milroe having to come out with his helmet coming off.
keep the offense on the field with 7:40 left. Field goal just seems, I guess, a bit tacky in this moment, so why not keep the offense out there when you're up 56-7. Simpson hands to Sanders, untouched. Given all he's been through, it's good to see him back in the end zone.
Well, he ran hard. A tough series of plays, a couple of penalties on Trey Sanders, but finally able to find his way into the end zone. Nice blocking up front. Nice and clean for 6 points.
Alabama has scored on all 14 red zone trips this year and 27 in a row dating back to last season. And Will Reichert with another extra point. Back to the studio in Darinoka.
And Taylor, just a reminder of when our nightcap on the SEC Network will be. Anthony Richardson making his journey into the swamp. Florida and South Florida get going just over half an hour from now. Gators, of course, trying to bounce back from that tough loss to Kentucky last week.
Stitch, what do you make of what you've seen from, well, first let me just tell you that you see this, it's incredible, 55+ points in consecutive home games. They shut out Utah State 55-0 in the first game. They hadn't done that since 1945. What do you make of Anthony Richardson and the progress he's made with the Gators? We got a chance to watch him last year, and he was out of sorts.
Yeah, still developing, obviously, and especially as a passer. And it does seem as if as he goes, the offense goes, and perhaps even the prospects of the entire team. He was pretty heroic in Furch versus Utah, albeit mostly with his legs. And that's the part that you really have to begin to question is, so what is Anthony Richardson at quarterback in this Gator offense? And is it more one-dimensional than we otherwise would have anticipated? So far, that passing part hasn't quite gotten untracked.
Rushing production from him last week, nowhere close to what it was against Utah. Against a game Wildcats bunch.
And you think, you know, of those 11 rushes, you know, some of those are scrambles. That's Anthony Richardson just making a play, not just a quarterback designed run. And so because of that, you do have to wonder, this Florida offense, what is it? What is the identity? What is it that they do best other than just have Anthony Richardson make a play?
Zach Martin's not going to get much as the second and third team Alabama defenders get a chance to play. You see Tim Keenan flashing in there, the freshman from Birmingham, big number 96, Isaiah Hastings. He's also out there on the field for the Crimson Tide. There's Keenan. Abel incomplete, throwing it at the feet of Bugs Mortimer. It'll be third down. Crimson Tide will play on SEC Saturday night next week as they host the Vanderbilt Commodores at 7:30 Eastern Time. 2 weeks from now, Stinch, on the road at the Razorbacks.
Yep, that's the one. You know, to me, coming into the season, I thought, yeah, I blew right past Texas. I think most of us did. It's Texas, rebuild. They're not what we think they are, or what the polls would often try to make them become. It's Texas. Texas is pretty good, seemingly, this year. That one still somewhat the jury being out. But then you go to Arkansas on the road. You better believe that the Hogs are going to be wound up for that game. And they've given Alabama some static. And as we already documented in this broadcast, Alabama has not played well on the road. You see that we just talked about the back-to-back 55+ points at home games. Utah State last week on the road in Austin. Really, really hostile environment. Escape with a 1-point win, but you won. But the question becomes, at number 10 Arkansas. And who knows what they'll be ranked by then, because Arkansas has Texas A&M coming up.
Kendrick Blackshear with a terrific tackle for loss on that last play. And Bond's going to let it go out of bounds, and the Tide get it back with 5:45 to go. Nick Saban with another win today. Tide enjoying a 63-7 lead over Louisiana Monroe today. Will Anderson Jr. with his first ever interception. It was a pick six. Branch with a punt return for a touchdown today. Tide has gotten touchdowns in all three phases, and Ty Simpson back on the field to finish things off. 8 different Bama players have scored touchdowns today.
Wow.
And some of those don't play on offense.
Ooh.
How about Jamarian Miller just running Warhawks over? 14 yards on the carry.
We saw him earlier. I mean, he's got a burst. And now clearly, he's definitely got some
Timeout on the field for
pop
player
to his
injury.
pads as we see a Warhawk defender. Looks like it's Isaiah Humphreys who's on the receiving end of that shot from Miller. Check on him. Good to see him move that left arm.
Yeah, that's a good sign. It's a scary hit. Humphreys has played at Penn State and at Cal, finishing his career for UL Monroe. Miller, the 5th different ball carrier today for Alabama. We'll take a timeout for this injury and be right back to wrap things up in Alabama. Freeze was able to get off of the field after this big hit that Jamarian Miller gave him. And there he is on his feet on the sidelines. That's a good sign.
Yes, thankfully. And you know what? You put that on the teaching reel and you say, this is why you don't lower your head. Came in with his head down. Crown of his helmet did not make contact. See Miller rip off another run.
It's been quite the second half for Alabama. 24 more yards as Kamen Mills saved the touchdown. Alabama over 240 rushing yards now on the day as Miller gets a breather. And Jonathan Bennett will get some action for the Crimson Tide in the backfield behind Simpson. Bennett gets spun around and gets a couple of yards. He's a junior from Birmingham that played at Oak Mountain High School. Yeah, those road tests are going to be intriguing for Alabama coming up, with Arkansas hosting Alabama in 2 weeks. Tide has to go to Knoxville in late October. That long winning streak for Alabama is on the line.
Tennessee scoring points, picking up right where they left off last season. Going to fight their way to get that overtime victory versus Pitt on the road.
And again, a good run for Bennett. Inside the 10, down to the 9.
There's no doubt some intrigue that remains on the schedule this year for Alabama. And it's a lot of it based on what we've seen, what they've put out there so far, and kind of the trend that continued from 2021, where they are a different team when they play on the road.
As we were saying earlier, Coach Saban said it, he thinks that the lack of veteran experience that he has on the bench is a reason for that. Certainly he thinks that the team could improve as the year goes along, and that's his expectation, that some of these younger players and these transfers can kind of bridge that gap in the weeks to come.
And it's just so hard. They are, from a net talent standpoint, improved. The problem is the experience and maturity.
Jackson Roby is running onto the field, and his teammates are going nuts. He's a redshirt senior from Huntsville, who's going to get to play some offensive line. You love to see that players that have never gotten a moment before get to come onto the field.
How about that? Yeah, it's kind of good, right? It's something that ULM was able to experience a little bit last week. Get a game under control, get some guys out there that don't always have an opportunity to run out on the field when the clock's still running.
We also have number 36, Brett Bolin, a redshirt senior from Lamont, Illinois, that is out there. And Charlie Skian, a tight end from Columbia, South Carolina, checks in too. Danny Lewis just played some tight end on the last play. And the clock cannot expire here. Play clock will reset, so Louisiana Monroe will get the ball back with about 20 seconds left. Sam Willoughby was just in on the last play as well. Vestavia Hills, Alabama player gets to come out. And Elijah Crockett is now in at running back. So actually, just given that this is the 4th down play, we'll take a knee, and that means that the Warhawks get it with 22 seconds left. Stinch, what'd you learn about the Crimson Tide today? We watched last week them have to fight for 60 minutes. Certainly are on cruise control in the second half against the Warhawks.
Still developing, obviously, offensively, where you see it in the passing game. There is not a comfort level just yet. That doesn't mean it's out of reach. That's something that will continue to progress as this season unfolds. They're going to have to accelerate that process, though, because it's getting real very quickly here. Defensively, continue to make plays, and of course, as we've mentioned, Alabama still has maybe the top 2 players in college football in Bryce Young and Will Anderson. Will Anderson continues to be a dominant force.
Well, I want to thank our entire crew for all of their hard work this week. It was just a privilege to work with everyone that was on site for this broadcast. Sean T. Jackson, you're a superstar. Evan Cohen, Richie Basili, everybody else that was part of the production team this week, thank you so much. Caleb up here in the booth, Russ Moore, Kevin Maloney, thank each of you. For Matt Stinchcomb and for Coley Harvey, I'm Taylor Zarzer. The Crimson Tide rolls over Louisiana Monroe 63-7, so long from Tuscaloosa.